The world you're seeing right now isn't what you think it is. The coldness you feel from your boss, the distance you feel from your partner, the tension in a crowded room, these aren't just facts. They are how you understand things. They are stories. They are things you project onto the world. You believe you're seeing reality clearly, like through a clean window. But the truth is, you're looking into a mirror that shows parts of yourself you don't even know are there. If you've ever felt like your life keeps repeating, like you're living the same emotional story with different people, then you've already touched on this truth. Maybe you've noticed that you keep having the same kind of problems at work, or your relationships follow a familiar pattern that always ends the same way. You might think it's just a coincidence, or bad luck, or the fault of difficult people. But what if the common thread in all of it is you? By the end of this video, you'll start to see how your inner world shapes the outer world you experience. You'll understand why the patterns in your life aren't random, and why real change doesn't come from running away from your surroundings, but from changing the way you see them. And once you truly see this, something changes. Something lets go. Something becomes possible. Because the world doesn't change first. You do. We like to imagine there's a clear line between who we are and the world we live in. That there's a solid me on the inside and an objective reality on the outside. But this line is much more leaky than we think. From the moment we're born, we start building inner models of the world. These models are shaped by our first relationships, by experiences of safety or rejection, by love or neglect. They become invisible filters through which we interpret everything. If you grew up in a place where criticism was common, your mind becomes really good at spotting criticism. It becomes your survival skill. You walk into a room and immediately feel rejection, even if it's not actually there. A neutral comment feels sharp. A quiet look feels heavy. And because you feel criticism, you react defensively. You shut down. You protect yourself. And by doing so, you subtly change the environment around you. People sense your defensiveness. They pull back. They become wary, maybe even annoyed. And now, what you feared seems real. See, you tell yourself, I knew it. But what you don't see is that your perception shaped your behavior, and your behavior shaped their reaction. It's a loop. That quiet loop that keeps repeating over and over. Let me tell you about Elias, who I'll just call Elias. Elias was sure his co-workers didn't respect him. Every email felt cold. Every meeting felt like a tiny snub. So he started to pull away. He stopped sharing ideas. He kept conversations short. He always assumed the worst. Over time, his co-workers really did start to keep their distance. Not because they planned to, but because talking to him felt tense, uncertain. Elias saw this and felt proven right. They never liked me, he thought. But what if they did at first? What if his belief slowly shaped the outcome he feared? This isn't rare. It's human. We are wired to seek out what's familiar, even if it brings pain. The brain prefers the known over the unknown. A familiar discomfort feels safer than an unfamiliar peace. So we repeat patterns, not consciously, but instinctively. We repeat emotional environments that feel like home, even if that home was painful. Think about relationships. Have you ever found yourself drawn to the same kind of person again and again? The emotionally unavailable one. The one who pulls away when you get close. The one who makes you question your worth. It feels like a coincidence. But it's not. It's recognition. Your nervous system recognizes a familiar emotional landscape and says, I know this place. I know how to survive here. Even if that survival comes at the cost of your happiness. And then, something even more subtle happens. You start to behave in ways that reinforce the pattern. If you expect someone to leave, you might become overly anxious. You might constantly ask for reassurance. You might test them, push them, question them, and slowly they start to feel overwhelmed, under pressure, trapped, and eventually they pull away. And when they do, it feels like proof. But it was also participation. This is what psychologists call a self-fulfilling prophecy. But you don't need the word to understand the feeling. It's that quiet sense that your biggest fears somehow keep coming true. Not because the world is against you, but because your inner world is shaping how you meet it. So how do you break the cycle? You start to look inward, not in a blaming way, not in a harsh, critical way, but in a curious way. Instead of asking, "Why does this keep happening to me?" you ask, "How am I participating in this?" This question changes everything, because it shifts you from victim to participant, from helpless to aware. Take Maya, for example. Maya believed that love had to be earned, that she had to be good, helpful, and right to be valued. As an adult, she carried this belief into her relationships. When her partner was quiet after a long day, she interpreted it as rejection, as distance, as a sign she'd done something wrong. So she tried harder. She stretched herself thinner. She became more attentive, more vigilant, more anxious. But her partner wasn't rejecting her. He was just tired. Her interpretation created the very tension she wanted to avoid. One day, she stopped. She asked herself a different question. What if this isn't about me? And in that moment, something softened. She stopped performing. She stopped chasing. She allowed space. And something shifted. Not overnight, not dramatically, but subtly. The loop began to loosen, because the lens had changed. This is the quiet power of awareness. It doesn't fix everything instantly, but it creates space. And in that space, you can respond differently. Instead of reacting from the past, you respond from the present. Instead of projecting old fears onto new situations, you start to see what's actually there. And what you find is often simpler than expected. Less threatening, less dramatic, more human. We all carry stories around. Stories about who we are. Stories about what others will do. Shaped by years of experience, by moments that left their mark. And these stories aren't wrong, but they're not the whole picture either. They are interpretations. And when we treat them as truth, we limit what we can see. Social media makes this even bigger. It feeds us stuff that proves what we already think. It makes our biases stronger. It keeps us stuck in our own story. And the more we take in, the more sure we become. But being sure isn't the same as being clear. Sometimes it's just repeating the same thing. Real clarity comes from questioning what seems obvious, from asking, "What if I'm wrong?" Not in a way that makes you feel weak, but in a way that opens you up. Because if your view caused the problem, it can also create the solution. Not by forcing positivity, not by ignoring reality, but by seeing more clearly, by realizing you might be projecting, by noticing that reaction when it's stronger than the moment needs, by pausing before you act. These are small changes, but they matter. Because life isn't just shaped by big decisions. It's shaped by repeated patterns, by habits of thought, by automatic reactions. And when you change those patterns, even a little, the whole direction starts to shift. So next time you feel triggered, angry, hurt, rejected, pause. Ask yourself, what am I seeing right now? And then ask, what am I adding to this? You might not have the perfect answer, but the question itself is enough to create distance, enough to soften the reaction, enough to choose differently. And over time, those choices add up. They create new patterns, new experiences, a new reality. Not because the world changed first, but because you changed. In the end, the goal isn't to get rid of your perceptions. It's to be aware of them, to see them as part of the experience, not the whole thing, to hold them lightly, Because when you stop seeing the world only as you are, you start seeing it as it is. And in that space, something opens up. A sense of freedom, of possibility, of connection. You're no longer stuck in the same story. You're no longer repeating the same script. You're meeting life as it unfolds, and that changes everything. So as you go through your day, remember this. What you see isn't just out there. It's also coming from inside you. And that means you have more power than you think. Not to control everything, but to see more clearly. And sometimes, that's all it takes. Because once you start seeing differently, you start living differently. And once you start living differently, the world starts to feel different too. Not because it changed, but because you finally did. Thanks for watching. Please comment, share, and subscribe for more.